everybody, welcome back to Dragonborn Industries for episode 26.5 of not painting up the monster manual today. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We've got some Warrior Prince 3D miniatures that we're going to be painting up that aren't necessarily the next one in the monster manual, and one of the things I wanted to do today was to talk about character creation and about monster creation especially, because although we're going through the monster manual, there are things to do with the game that you can't always find in the resources available, and what happens if you want to create a monster. So Richard doesn't actually know that this is the point of the show today, that we're going to do a little bit of backwards and forwards about like how we would go about either reskinning a monster or getting a miniature that we go, oh, I'd love to throw that into a game, which you can find from so many 3D printing companies, and have people like Richard print out for you, and how we would go about looking at stat blocks, finding stat blocks, and then creating a monster. But first of all, Richard, hello, how are you?
I'm alright. Certainly, better today. But it actually plays quite nicely, because I wanted to talk about some bits and pieces with character creation and stuff like that, and stuff like that. So that does play in quite nicely.
Awesome. So I guess the first thing that we always need to do is introduce you to Warrior Prince 3D. And who is Warrior Prince 3D? Who is Richard, and where can people find you?
I am Richard from Warrior Prince 3D. I am your one-stop shop for all your 3D printing needs, be it wee little minis, collectibles, statues, cosplay, terrain pieces, dungeons. I can now print entire dungeons if you want them. Book nooks, statues, anything you can put your mind to wanting or needing to print, I can fit it on my printers, I can do it. It's all good. You can find me with Dragonborn Industries here, Band of Badgers, over on Etsy, Facebook, Instagram, street corners, random places, shops, you know, I'm pretty much everywhere.
He is, and he is a pleasure to work with on both the Badgers and here on Dragonborn, and also for minis here at the table. And if you use code to the stars on his Etsy store, you'll get 10% off, which is an exclusive Dragonborn Industries code. But I'm Ian, the Dragonborn Bard, and this is obviously Dragonborn Industries, where you can find me and Richard. But I'm going to be painting up this. Now, this is a Trient Guardian that Richard sent me. It is about 75mm, and I have been dying to paint this, but it's not necessarily a monster from the monster manual. And although we could say, oh, I suppose we could put it in place of a Trient or maybe a Guardian, which are two completely different monsters within there, I wanted to know, or I wanted to have a play around with how I would go about creating a combination of them both for this particular creature. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And we've got these like lovely little areas of stone protruding out of the back. We've got this armor, these stones up here, and it just sits on this really, really lovely base. Do you remember who this one was by, Richard?
That's Artisan Guild.
Yeah, it's freaking phenomenal.
One of the Noble Afar, the Elven set they've released lately. This month is Dark Elves.
Yes. Yes, it is. And you did a Dark Elves one-shot for New Year, didn't you?
No, that was as part of the campaign. My campaign.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. What are you going to be painting up today?
So today, I am painting this chappy here.
Oh.
Depends how well we can get in focus.
Oh, that's very, very badass.
So that's his human form.
Human form, oh god.
And then this
Whoa!
is his werewolf form.
Damn! Is that Artisans as well, or where's that from?
That's Artisan as well.
Wow, so they're knocking them out of the park at the moment then.
Yeah, so this was a few months back, and this has been one of my favourite releases so far, because this is it's a two-part release they did of basically the Northmen of Skuttergard. I think that is what they've called them. A very sort of a Viking-esque release, and this second part was very, very cool, because basically you've got beastmen sort of thing, so it's all in human forms, and then they have a werebear-like equivalent, which suits quite nicely for certain character needs.
Yeah.
This is one thing I'll be talking about today, because this is based on an actual D&D character I have, or I'm wanting to use.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
So, yeah.
I like that a lot. So, for anybody watching, usually what we do is we have our 1 hour, 1 mini, roll initiative and go. I'm not going to put a timer on today, but I'm going to keep an eye on the time so that we stick to in and around that hour mark. We're going to paint up our minis, and we're just going to chat about either character creation, or we're going to talk about how we would take a monster, create a monster, reskin a monster, because Bridget and I both DM games. When it comes to 5e, which I know is a bit of a touchy subject still at the moment, I've spent a lot of time either reskinning things to fit the narrative, or combining monsters and using the thing that I always talk about, which is the big three, so armor class, hit points, and damage ability, to sort of, subtract or be an additive to different areas to create a balanced monster for your campaigns. With yourself, Richard, so let's talk about character creation first, because I'm going to use an airbrush for the first time on this show to just give this a bit of a xenophil before I go in and spray it with other things. How would you go about with character creation there with something like a werebear?
So with this guy, what I've done is basically I've been wanting a druid build for quite some time, and not wanting to be the traditional sort of person, because I like to break the mold. I was trying to sort of come up with an idea for a more rough and tumble druid. So this guy is very much been out on his own, hobo-esque sort of nature, doesn't bathe as much as he should, likes to roll around in the dirt, and doesn't much sort of care for people around him. It is I've gone for I'm going for the Circle of the Moon.
Yeah.
So usually in the Circle of the Moon, at a certain point in your level, you would be able to turn into a fire elemental, or one of the elementals.
Yes.
So instead of turning into an elemental, I will maintain the same or similar stats, but instead shift into a werebear form.
Wow. Okay, so, I mean, obviously, like, werebears, like, and lycanthropy is a thing that you can have throughout D&D anyway, if you contract it or if your character starts it. And we can look at Crit Roll and Chetney Pockopy and played by Travis Willingham, because...
Chetney's a blood hunter.
Yes.
So, and he's Order of the Lycan, which is what you can do on
Yes.
Order of the Lycan.
But,
again, that is my favourite blood hunter build.
yes, I really like that one as well, and I think Kim played one in some High Rollers one-shots as well. But you obviously, like, you can be your regular character and still contract lycanthropy or, one of those things.
Oh yeah, and you become an uncontrollable beast.
Yes, to an extent. It's I think you still have a level of control as a werewolf and a werebear and stuff, but with a werewolf, I think, same as kind of what Chetney does, you have to roll wisdom saving throws, don't you?
No, well, so on the blood hunter build you do, if you're a full werewolf, I'm pretty sure it's DM controlled.
Is it? I always thought it was a...
No, because it's one of the whole sort of things of basically you're becoming cursed, and when you assert your form, you are not yourself.
See, I'm going to go check that right now, because I swore that I was playing through Curse of Strahd, and it was one of the things that made the werewolves particularly nasty, was that they still had their minds for some extent. But I could be completely wrong, and you could be completely right.
I may be wrong, but it's how I've always played it.
Yeah. And that's kind of the whole thing as well, is actually, when we talk about these monsters and stuff, you can change them. You don't have to go rules as written, and that's kind of one of the points of today, is that the whole point of playing D&D is to use your imagination and to go from there. And this is only like guidelines to go from, realistically.
Rule of cool will out.
Oh yeah, rule of cool, 100%. I'm gonna have a quick look. That's gonna be a lot of reading to work this one out at the moment.
Might be worth it. A Google might be easier.
Yes, I will look at that one later then, because I want to get to painting this mini. So, obviously, like, yeah, you're using your then druid changed form to go into a werebear rather than into a beast form or an elemental form in that case.
Yeah, basically it just becomes almost just like a druid form for me.
Yeah, I think that's very, very cool. So have you traded off then? So to go into that form, you're saying you can't do any other forms?
No. And even to a point of my normal forms are bear. I've got a nice little bear here. And wolf.
Fair enough.
And basically what I've done, what I usually do in the games is you have to see monsters to be able to turn into them.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
And so basically I had like a cool sort of thing worked out because it's Circle of the Moon, and because basically I'm going to be very much I say a moon worshipper, but obviously the passing of the moon and the infection of the world.
Yeah.
When I learn a animal or see an animal for the first time, the way I sort of convert it to memory and am able to shift into it, I see the outline as a what's the word for the thing? The shaped stars form.
Oh yes. It's the one from Tasha's Cauldron, isn't it? That new druid class.
No. It's still Circle of the Moon, but when I see a creature, I imagine it's constellation, the star constellation it would form as a beast, and that's how it becomes part of the memory.
That's pretty cool because I always thought it was from Tasha's because there is Circle of the Stars, which is like an astral one.
You got the astral one, but no, this is still Circle of the Moon.
Fair
but
enough.
That's just my little gimmick as I would describe it and visualize it in the session.
Yeah. So we've got Herbalist in chat, afternoon all, lurking and listening while I tidy up. Hey, well, thank you for the lurk. We're very happy with that. Today's sort of episode is about character creation and monster creation because we have some minis that we wanted to paint up, and actually now we're past the quarter century on the episodes. We thought we'd do something a little different for this week. So I'm painting up the Guardian Treant from Warrior Prince 3D and Artisans Guild, and Richard is painting up a werebear druid, which is one of his characters. And so did you come up with that character because you saw the mini first, or did you come up with that character because that's what you wanted, then you found the mini?
The mini cemented it. I had like, rough spacey ideas, and then when I saw the release, it basically helped me pair everything together and do it. Yeah,
fair enough, because I find that a lot of the time I'll have ideas, but then I'll see a mini and I'll completely change my ideas. And I think a lot of the times as well, like Richard's seen when I've been asking for Starfinder for him to print me something, I'll be like, hey, I've seen this, could you print it for me? It's the closest I can get, or can you find this for me? Because I can't find something similar. But what I like with characters and stuff is when you do go to create, if you then do find a mini, you can be like, oh, I didn't think about this as well. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with finding a mini and then basing a character around it. And if, like Richard and I, you like to create based off minis that we can print or we can source, why not? So, is it a straight druid class or is it a multi-class?
At the moment, straight druid.
Do you think you'd take that dip into Blood Hunter at all?
It's possible, or it will be Blood Hunter or Berserker, or Barbarian.
Yeah, and I think Barbarian's a really good choice for a werebear. Because obviously with Druids you get to keep your class stats and your class abilities. So, hitting like Path of the Berserker or Totem Warrior as well as being a werebear is fucking powerful.
Yep.
So, I've just Xenothawed this a little bit with some white ink. I had it primed in black, and now I'm going to hit it up with some brown for most of the tree roots and for all those sticks, the claws, and then afterwards I'm going to be going in with some metals on the armor plates and some greys on the base. But yeah, I'm just going to start hitting this up with an airbrush and go from there, realistically. Do let me know if the airbrush is too loud for anybody, and I will adjust my mic accordingly. So where do you get to play this druid then?
So this is a small campaign that's sort of started recently, and I broached with the person that's sort of running it. It's basically it's a bit of a dungeon crawler at the moment, to be able to sort of get everyone going, and then branch out into something a bit more later on.
Nice. So it's kind of like a short campaign or a one-shot kind of thing, which then turns into a three-shot and then a
one-shot. It's a probably level 1 to 6 throughout. Like this, basically, places have got no way out at the moment, so having to venture further in and finding out where the end might be.
Nice. So Fluffy's just telling me to adjust the mic. Fluff, I'm going to go again. Let me know if this is any better. Obviously, it's now away from my face, so my voice is going to change slightly as well while I hit this up with some sepia. So let me know how that is for sound, because obviously we are not used to using an airbrush on this show. And then I can talk about this beastie and what I would do with this. So, what would you do with something like this creature?
Something like that?
Yeah.
It would, well, definitely would be a guardian over something. And to be honest, it'd be one of those ones I'd say completely custom and splice up a couple of other bits and pieces. You'd have some elemental thrown in there, come up with some rather fun little lair actions, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for me, when I saw this and I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. The first thing I saw was actually a guardian before I saw the treant. So the guardian itself is obviously a creature that I'm going to grab the monster manual, because there's two creatures that I would start splicing between, and it's the guardian and the treant. And I definitely see it as either a druid's guardian, especially because it's got those elemental stone bits on there as well, or some wood elves or anything like that. But the guardians are really cool because they're controlled creatures, whereas obviously treants are very, very sentient. And where is the guardian? I don't think it's that far back. Right. That's the Guardian Naga. Interesting.
I'd also be inclined to give it some magical properties as well.
Yes, absolutely. Why can I not see this in the book? Interesting. I could have sworn it was in the monster manual. Shows you how long it's been since I've actually gone through a lot of these. Since we're doing it week by week. So we pass the dragons. So they're the golems. Yeah, in terms of magic ability, it's definitely going to have either some kind of enchantment or some kind of area of effect around it, I think, that would protect it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to Google it, which is interesting. Usually, I'm pretty good at knowing where in the books they are. Oh, it's got a shield guardian, that's why. Right, there we go. So this is the image that I saw ages ago, which was this one here, which has this armor on it, and it has those wooden elements. And usually these are like a controlled creature. They're like a CR7, and man, this is on page 271. They're like so far away. But I really like this idea of like this almost like natural construct with then armor over it. But the idea of having the warped stone and the metals and all these like earthen things that can come from the ground, and like I said, for a druid or for a forest elf clan, really kind of spoke to me. So I think that that would definitely be the first place I would go to. I wouldn't necessarily give it sentience. I would keep it probably on the Shield Guardian side of things, so it's like a guard or it's being controlled by somebody. But it then still has those construct immunities, and it still has, the elements of it that things like spell storing or anything like that, where a spellcaster can store their spells inside it, and then it's got like so many of it to use. I think that is something that I would definitely play around with. As for things like the area of effect, I'd probably use something like plant growth or difficult terrain to then have like an area of maybe like 20 feet radius around it, where anywhere it steps, like new plants grow or bloom, and like abilities like that I think is something that I would really like to give a creature like this, something that's like really fitting with how the mini looks. And that's the Treant page right there, which is a bit further on. That's another stat block that I would probably splice together with the Shield Guardian. And although the Shield Guardian's a CR7, we've got a CR9 with the Treant, and that's where we can sort of begin the construct creation of this monster for D&D. So we can look at like the level of the party, where the average level, say for example, is either 7 or 9 would be perfect, because then we can go off the basis of CR7 or CR9. However, if that's not the case, we can then look at the big three. So we can look at the armor class, we can look at the hit points, and we can look at the damage dealing, and then we can work out whereabouts we want them to be strongest and them to be weakest, so as not to just overpower the party. So things like the Treant has a armor class of 16, hit points of 138 as written, and can deal 4d10 plus 6 bludgeoning damage, which is pretty hefty with a range attack. Whereas the Shield Guardian, if I go back over here, we're looking at armor class of 17, which is 1 higher, hit points of 142, and we're looking at damage dealing of 2d6 plus 4, but it has spell storing abilities. So I quite like that. And I think if you're going to have spell abilities, maybe knock down the strength, but then this thing looks pretty tanky. So it's one of those things where you have to look at what you need in the moment, I guess. And yeah, I where would you begin on that one?
It would be one of those things that I would give it some big big hitters, but it's one shot wonders. And again, it will be situational. So if you had a fireball, for instance, it would only use it if there was more than say 3 adversaries in its range.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that something like a fireball as well for something like this, that's such a dangerous move for a creature made of wood that, maybe I would give it fire vulnerability, and maybe I would say, okay, you've got fireballs, you're going to be close to it. If it uses it, it's like a last-ditch effort, I'm taking everything with me. But then maybe it's got other effects, and I would definitely pour a lot of druidic spells into this.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right with the big hitters. It's got 1 or 2 big hits, but after that it's just about getting the damage on it and just having it just have a pool of hit points that the players have just got to really grind away at. I think that's definitely
I'm also a bit mean in these big fights, because I don't like it when people just think, right, I'm going to stand here and hit you till one of us falls down.
Yes.
Because my big fights, I'll have multiple sort of, lots of different ways to go. Let's, a big area, and if you use the environment, it will benefit you exponentially.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that that could tie into things like area of effect and into stuff like that. Because if you had an area of effect that was like plant growth around it, so all terrain around it became difficult terrain for like 20-foot radius, you're talking a 40-foot circle there. And then if it's got no difficulty crossing that because it's its natural environment, things like your barbarians, your melee class fighters, yeah, they're going to get up to it maybe in a round if they use their action to dash, depending on where they were to begin with. It can then move away. Yeah, they might get an attack of opportunity, but if it's got the hit points, they've then got to spend their actions again dashing for the next turn. So you're slowing down the melee class fighters as long as you've got a big enough area to do it with. You could also have reactive things like shields or, things like regrowable arms. And you could Groot it almost with that. Dibs, sorry guys, I was busy. Did you miss me? We did, Dibs. We always missed you. We're doing a bit of a special episode today where we're not going to do something from the Monster Manual, but we're going to be painting up minis while we talk about monster creation and how we would go about taking something like this mini, which is the Treant Guardian that Richard sent me from Artisan Guild, and how we would create a monster for that in D&D rather than just going with the standard rules as written. But yeah, I think that you're right. It's a case that you don't necessarily have it completely grinding of just like, we're going to keep hitting each other till it goes down. As long as you've got range, melee, and maybe some spell casting ability in there, then you can move it around. I would say slowing down the melee fighters is probably an ability I would give it, so that your fighters, your barbarians, and your clerics aren't just running in and, and paladins especially with smites.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, you mean you're going to be hitting huge damage.
I'd also give it abilities like, so when you, even though you can make it difficult terrain, I'd even sort of have a couple of say vine traps, but basically ways that you, with slowing down the party, splitting them up as well.
Yes.
So one of them, as say 3 are coming through the difficult terrain, one has a chance to basically be wrapped up in a vine.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that something like that, where you can like have a hold person or a hold creature, or grasping vines if you're reskinning it for the monster itself.
The main thing I would do on that is that any vined creature then acts as a battery of health.
Now that's kind of vampiric, and I like it because I think that for me, we only really think of as like a necrotic thing like leech life and stuff, but actually when we look at other, not necessarily systems, but other games, things like Pokemon, where you've got moves like Leech Seed, where you vine a creature and then it saps the health out of it. I actually really like things like that, and I think that that's great to bring that into this as a different ability. And there are spells like Vampiric Touch that you could absolutely use for that. And like, what if you had one of its spell abilities is, okay, in this area, it's got this like overgrowth that causes difficult terrain, then they have to make a strength check against being grabbed if they're traveling through it once per turn. If it grabs them, the creature can then make a Vampiric Touch ability, but obviously reskinned and renamed as its Leech Life ability. And then you're just reskinning spells.
Yeah.
And instead of it just being like bang ability, bang ability, bang ability, your action economy changes then as well, because action economy is huge for D&D. Because if you've got, I mean, I don't know about you, but usually around my table there are 5 or 6 people, and D&D and most TTRPGs are created for 4 people, and that's what the CRs are based around. So when you've got 5 people going smash, smash, ability, and then something else on top, and then the monster's going action, move, maybe a bonus action, the action economy just means that they're putting on damage like 50 to 100 per round, and it's dealing next to nothing. But if you can change that and you can have abilities that aren't spells, so like the plant growth, then they're having to make a check, then it gets an ability, then we're changing up the action economy. Although it becomes more dangerous, it gives the players that level of immersion and that level of tenseness, I find. So I think that's a very good shout. I'm going to mute my mic for a minute because I'm going to do a heavy amount of spraying. Entertain the audience, Richard.
Hey. So one thing I find quite fun as well is making things tougher than people will think they are. So if you've had a lot of sort of low level bits and pieces in the area, and people are just expecting like another run of the mill fight, have it out as though it looks like it's not going to be much, but adding bits and pieces to it, adding environmental effects, adding different abilities to it. And one big thing that I know is something that I've implemented recently, that we started to think about and consider more recently. If you have multiple enemies, bearing in mind when you down someone, they have death saves too.
Yes. So this is something I agree with. If they're an NPC or they are a named character, I will absolutely give them a death save. Sometimes though, I don't. And that's for maybe lesser beings and stuff, because I didn't necessarily either, they're not crucial to the storyline, but I will let things like revivify and stuff like that work for them.
Oh yes, but I'm on about if bandits attack you, you've got a party of 4 being attacked by, say, 10 bandits. Party's doing quite well. They group up. They chug through 1 or 2. One goes down and goes, oh, and it has fallen. Party then move on to another target. Leave body on the floor. Body rolls over, actually quite fine, and then plugs you in the back with a crossbow bolt.
So yes, in that instance, absolutely, I think that is something that you could absolutely, why not? Because it adds that level of like the party needs to then look at either finishing them off and being those guys that like double tap with a sword, or are they merciful? Do they, not deal damage? Absalom Dak, hello everybody. Hello and welcome to the show. We're doing like a special today where we're just painting up some minis that we do for character creation or that we've got, and talking about how we would create a monster based off the rules as written and then reskin things or chop and slice stat blocks. And I'm going to show this one off again. This is the Artisan Guild's Shield Guardian Treant from the Elven release. I'm just smashing this up with an airbrush, and we're talking about how we would go about creating abilities, or what kind of abilities we would then look to reskin and use on this particular mini. As for the death saves, in that instance, definitely a thing that is worth doing, especially if like you want to have it last a bit longer. Maybe the party are, a higher level and the bandits are not. Then that's definitely a thing that, they had at lower levels. Why not give it to the bandits?
And also remembering that enemies might heal each other or help each other get back up.
Yeah, and that's something that I definitely do, is healing each other. One of my favourite things to do, and it's really mean, is to stop the party from healing each other. And I love either areas of null magic, which, like anti-magic, where it is all down to the melee fighters, but you then are taking your spellcasters out. But one of my favourite things is counterspell. Because there's nothing shittier than when you're casting a heal and the arcane archmage that you're facing is like, no, I want you all dead. Counterspell that healing touch. And they're like, beg your pardon? You're like,
I'm sorry, what now?
Yeah, counterspell your cure wounds, and it's just fucking brutal. I probably wouldn't do something like that with this particular creature because I don't think that's its MO, but I definitely would, maybe have it like, I definitely have it resistant to spells. I wouldn't make it immune to spells, but I would probably make it vulnerable to fire. Little Goblin Girl, hey, Steph! Anti-magic is such an interesting thing to throw at a party. It really is, but the trouble is it throws your spellcasters out of the fight. It's like putting somebody to sleep when they can't do anything unless they're multi-classed, and in some aspects, things like the Beholders with their anti-magic cone, phenomenal. I really like that because it's a cone, so they can only really face 8 different directions, and it's all about the wizard moving out of that area. Anti-magic field, same thing, it's an area of effect. If you were to just say, magic's dead in this entire fight, you've lost a few players there. But anti-magic is definitely an interesting thing to play with because it's so incredibly fun to like watch spellcasters go, oh shit, because that's their whole thing. It's like
if I was going to do like a whole area of anti-magic, I'd do it at certain levels.
Yes.
And so I wouldn't say, oh, all your magic's naff. It'd be a case of that spell didn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you were looking at burning resources and stuff like that. I also really like the idea of having not necessarily anti-magic, but having wild magic around something. And one of the things I use for a campaign at home is that they're in this area where the wild magic is just nuts, and every time they cast a spell of 3rd level or higher, they are automatically rolling on the wild magic table. And anytime they cast a spell of 2nd level and lower, except cantrips, they roll the D100 just like a wild magic sorcerer to then see if they're rolling on the table. And that's been really fun because we have a wild magic sorcerer in the party already. So maybe we could look at giving this creature something like a field of not anti-magic, a field of wild magic, because I think it needs magic itself to survive.
Well, so it is a magic construct. You'd have it, if it created an anti-magic field, it could die.
Exactly that, and we don't want that realistically. So how is everybody doing? Because obviously, like today, there's no pressure on Richard and I to finish the mini in an hour. We're just gonna sit around painting and talking about monster and character creation. And yeah, this is just a chance for you guys to, talk about things that you've done in your campaigns and how you go about reskinning monsters or creating monsters. Do you always go with rules as written, or do you create different things? Dibs, I was late, guys, and Twitch has been pissing me about. What's being painted? So I'm painting up the Artisan Guild Treant Shield Guardian crossover from the Elves release. Richard would have to be more accurate on that for me, because I just saw big Treant and was like, fuck, this is amazing.
Release.
Yeah. And Richard, what are you painting up?
I'm painting up this beefcake. It will focus.
Oh, I need another palette. There's one. There you go. So, the reason Richard's painting that one is because it's one of your characters, isn't it?
Yep.
So, we've spoken a little bit early on, but some people may have missed it. What kind of character is it that you have done?
So this guy is my Circle of the Moon. What's that? It's a half-elf druid as well, but I've had him designed. I've created him in a way that the elf side is very, very slight. So basically the thing I've done is I don't get any of the big sort of racial bonuses like sleep and stuff like that.
Nice.
To counteract certain of the bits and pieces that I am doing.
Yeah.
Because basically I wanted dark vision.
Yep, fair enough. And actually, that's a very good point to bring up to anybody who's maybe just getting into DMing or is creating characters. When you add something to a creature, you really want to look at taking something else away. When they write the rules as written, it's what they would call balanced for game rules as written. But obviously, when you create a character or a monster, you don't always have everything there that you want. So when we look at talking about like the Shield Guardian, the Treant, or in Richard's case, the Werebear Barbarian / Druid, putting all those things in with the Half-Elf as well. Although all those things synergize lovely, sometimes it's too much. And a lot of people will say, always say yes and rather than no but. I'm here to tell you, you can say no. You absolutely can say no, because if it's game breaking, you might find that yes and could take away fun from the other players. And if they're like, oh god, they can do everything, they're not going to have a good time around the table with player X. So what Richard has done is gone, I want this, but to compromise, I am taking this away from myself. And that way it kind of rebalances everything out. And the same is for monster creation. And when I talk about the big three, which is armor class, hit points, and damage dealing ability, you need to have two that is relatively alright and one that is significantly lower. Because if it's dealing a heavy amount of damage and it's not easy to hit, imagine rolling, 4d20s and only one of those hits, so a quarter of the time, and then it's got a massive pool of hit points. It's just going to be a brutal, demoralizing fight for your players. So we need to look at, is it easy to hit? If so, do we need to up the hit points? And then we need to look at the damage dealing ability. So if it's dealing like 66 worth of damage per round and there's no save, we're looking at like 36 points of damage. Maybe we lower its HP so that although it's dealing big damage, it can go down a lot quicker. So it's not going to just be your players shitting themselves. Maybe it's hard to hit, but it's got no hit points. Maybe it's got really hard to hit and loads of hit points, but it just does chip damage. So maybe it's doing like 2d6 per round, and although it's not much, it adds up over time. That's where the big three really sort of come in for me when it comes to monster creation. You have to take something away if you're giving it something. And I think when it comes to mixing stat blocks, which is what I was looking at with this particular creature, when we were looking at the Shield Guardian and the Treant, I would definitely take away the sentience from the Treant, and I would probably hand it, the spellcasting ability of the spell storing from the Shield Guardian. And then it depends on the character's levels and what's in the party. If we were looking at, 3 melee, 1 spellcaster, maybe one of those melees is a cleric. then I would probably look at making it a difficult terrain around it, giving it those spell abilities, but probably low physical damage, but a heavy tank for taking damage. I think that would be the best way for me to go about in that particular instance.
Yeah, agreed.
So, and is it being painted with the Army Painter paints from the Army Painter? I'm using a mix of the Army Painter paints from the Army Painter range. I'm using Dale Arowney inks through the airbrush, and I'm also using the layer paints from Vallejo and Citadel. Velvet, what is going on with my notifications? How did I miss 40 minutes? Velvet Plum, the Space Marine, hey B, how you doing? Don't know how you missed 40 minutes, but that's okay. There's never any pressure. You can always watch it back.
All right, don't mind.
I miss all of your streams because they're usually on a Friday or a Saturday night, and I'm with my wife or my kids, so I do apologise. I jump in where I can, but either that or I'm with Band of Badgers, actually, because... we're back tonight with Band of Badgers. I am fuming. You're fine. Don't worry about it. There's no combat going on in today's episode. Today's episode is all about monster creation, and I know for a fact out there that little Goblin Girl plays D&D, because I know that because... it's the reason she's in the Starfinder campaign. That's Steph, our very own TJ Squeakerson. And I know that she is a phenomenal DM as well, so... What about the rest of you? I know that Dak hasn't played for a while with other people, I think was the last time we spoke. But I know that you DM and you've created a lot of things, especially in the sort of earlier editions of D&D. How about you, Velvet and Dibs? When was the last time you got to play D&D? And do you ever do character creation or... monster creation, or are you just players? And I say just players, I mean getting to play is one thing, but I mean do you DM as well is the main thing, I guess I'm going with there. And anybody else that's listening, like Herbalist or Dragon Skull, which way round do you do things? Which way round do you find it more interesting?
I don't think Dibs has been able to play us yet.
Oh, is he not? Because I know that he wants us to come and play at some point, and hopefully we will be able to do such things. I need to start going in on that base. I'm going to grab some black Dale Arowney, and I'm going to put that into my airbrush. Usually on this show, we try and do it for as quick as possible, for as cheap as possible, and just speed paint through things. I'm in no rush to finish this today. I'm going to be using a lot of inks and stuff like that to shade before I go in and dry brush some more things. So even at the moment, there's a lot of that Zenithal still showing through. And that's because I'm just trying to bring up those browns slowly before I start adding in greens and more perfected highlighting. I'm going to quickly mute my mic again while I do some of this inking.
I have found what is especially fun when customizing monsters. If you have characters or players that tend to like to, we won't use the word meta, but they will plan around certain things. So they will rely on their knowledge of a beast or of their action economy. So one big thing that tends to bother me is reactions. So if someone goes, oh, that's fine, they've already used their reaction, I can get away with doing this. I tend to have a certain couple of other little tricks up its sleeve that it can do.
So in that instance, what would you do there? Because I quite like player reactions, and, the creature gets one, the players get one, and I'm very much okay with that being even. The hardest one is things like... Sentinel and Attack of Opportunity, but at the same time the player has forsaken all of the abilities to go with that and all of the feats, so usually I'm okay with it, but sometimes
it's situational.
Exactly that. So it's I guess it's one of those things. I mean, yeah, what are the other little tricks that you have up your sleeve for if it is problematic?
So if someone's moving in, I will have either, and they're relying on basically, that's not saying relying, it's more a case of if they're trying to take advantage of the system for either a silly benefit or they're taking a piss.
Yeah. I think if a player was metaing in the sense that they were like, I know that this has only got 134 hit points, and I know that it's immune to fire, but it's vulnerable to acid, I would maybe be like, okay, now you're just playing the book. But I think there are certain things to characters where you're like, okay, well, give me a check and stuff like that's fine. But I think I'm not too bothered about the reaction thing. But yeah, definitely if you were metaing too hard in the sense of the stat block itself, or if they pulled up the stat block, I'm like, no! I'd be like, nah, I'm changing this on the fly now.
Yeah. Yeah, I am a bit of a bastard like that.
Oh, geeky. Afternoon all, finally made a stream. Good to see your lovely face again. Chris, man, how you doing? It's been a while. I hope your new year was all good. We're just taking, not a week off, but we're taking a week to just paint up some minis, talk about monster creation, talk about, GMing and DMing as a whole, and kind of the things that we like to do, realistically. I hope that you're doing well, my friend. It's nice to see you back. I'm going to... Now, do I throw some metallics through an airbrush, or do I dry brush them on?
The airbrush.
Oh, God.
Have you got any of your fancy things through from Green Stuff World?
No, so I'm looking forward to getting those through, but they've got to come from Spain, so I've got to wait a little while for that. But that's absolutely fine. It'll turn up probably once I'm done with this stream today. Because that's always the way, isn't it, really?
That's it.
I'm just going to pause that because I need to blow this airbrush out. Put some thinner in there and just clean it out before I put the metallics in. Give me 2 seconds. There you go, that makes it a bit cleaner for me to put in the metallics there. So, I'm going to have browns on there. So I'm going to go with a silver on the plates because I really want that to be a contrast to the browns that we're hoping to get in for the rest of the branched bits. What I really want to do, though, is I want to get hold of some of the metallic speed paints and try those for an airbrush.
That's my next test because so far they've been a bit shaky.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's one of those situations I'm like, am I using them right? But yeah, they look alright.
So, I don't know about you, and although we talk about like the Army paints from the Army Painter each week, I've been really struggling to use them. I find that although they're called speed paint, they are layer up really quick, but then wait for them to dry.
Yeah.
So, although I've been enjoying them, I'm finding that I do miss using the layer paints. They are, I find, a lot easier for me, and just one of the things that I'm definitely going to be going back to using much more of the brush on technique. And I actually have found that like over the past couple of days I've been painting up a load of Star Wars Legion stuff, and I'm like, oh, I've missed this. I've missed painting like me.
Oh, that's it. Well, it's like painting this now. It's I'm not having to sort of juggle around with the stuff either moving or trying to get it dried and that.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that I don't need to finish this by the end of the stream, so I'm like, I'm just going to take it nice and chill. Doing much better, thanks. I'm looking at firing up the printer this evening and also setting up a game of The Walking Dead as I've got the PDF rules through now. Nice! Geeky, that's fucking awesome. I know a guy who knows quite a bit about 3D printing, and if you need any help... That way! He's that way. Yeah, it's, he's helped me out loads with mine as well, actually, to be honest, and yeah, it's... nice to have somebody on hand who knows what they're doing.
It was annoying because I was trying to get... I'm printing myself something this week. And I was trying to get it finished before the stream, but they're very long prints, unfortunately. And I was only able to get the files, I think, the night before last.
So
it's a new dice pot.
Oh, nice!
It's an orc skull.
Lovely. I know a Dragon School studios who would like something like that. Actually, I sent you in Dragon Skull Out something, and I'll probably announce it here as well. So Fiend Slayer Games, who are they make minis. I don't know how relatively new they are, but they're doing like a 3D printing giveaway, and essentially you print and paint one of their minis, and you could win one of the new Saturn 3 Ultras, I think it is. And I sent Dibs out something yesterday, so it should be turning up today for him. It was a bit of a rush job, so when the pictures come up, it's not how it would normally print, and I used the pre-support, so there are a few failures on their Dibs, so just be aware of that. But yeah, I sent you the files and to Dragon Skull Studios as well for you guys to print out and have a go with, because one of them's pretty funky, the same one I sent out to Dibs. So yeah, I don't know if you saw them or not.
I haven't had a look, no. You sent me out the link for the competition a week or so back, didn't you?
Yes.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I sent it to you via email. Right. So as far as metallics go, again, this is all pretty muted colours at the moment. So we've got the silver on that chest there, and we've got this like very slight brown just on there, and then grey on the rocks coming out of the back there. I'm going to let that dry for a minute, and then I'm going to dry brush grey on the base, some grey on the rocks, and then I'm going to pick out the lines. I then need to hit the arms with a slightly darker brown to begin with, but we have the base shading on there for now. And it's been so long since I've used the airbrush. So, oh, Debs, I've just received it, literally just undone the box. Hey, enjoy, Debs. I look forward to seeing what you do with it, because I'm not doing that many. As for what's going on here, that's going to be my first print as well. Oh, awesome! That's very cool, Geeky. Very, very cool. Right, so I just need this to dry a bit longer. So what I'm going to do with the airbrush, this is a big pot of water, and I'll probably talk about this more on the airbrush show, hopefully coming out very soon. Quickest way to clean your airbrush. Forgive the noise. I'm going to empty out the paint from there. I'm going to dunk that whole thing in the pot, so the cup and the nozzle is underwater. And I'm going to run the water straight through the cup, straight through the actual airbrush. And what that should do is purge the airbrush of any paint.
Hopefully.
Always leave some behind, but you can always dip it out. But it's, yeah, I spent ages like taking apart the airbrush and then redoing it, and then realized that somebody sent me a thing and they were like, just do this. And I was like, oh my God, that's fucking genius. That's a nice quick way of doing it. Right. So if you were going to take the character that you're painting, this barbarian, this druid werebear, if you were going to turn that into an NPC, would you make that the same as a party level one, or would you look at a druid stat block and a werebear stat block and start mixing those up?
I would go party. Well, if I'm introducing an NPC, I usually put them a level or two above the party.
So you make them a fully leveled character?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Because I don't always do that. I find that sometimes I want some abilities from one class and some abilities from another class. And sometimes I mix and match. Because it might fit special boons that they've got or certain things.
It is one of those things I like to play in that aspect, but when I'm trying to be a little more on the, I'd say on the fair side, on the clean and cut side, I'll take straight character.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that, again, for me, is like where I will take away other abilities. So I won't give them full dual classes at the same level. It'll be like, okay, you've got this, but you don't have this of the other class. Or maybe you've got a rage ability that allows you to make a reckless attack, but you don't have the resistances. Stuff like that. And I will tend to mix and match and give them certain things. One of the other things I like to do is take the stat blocks of a commoner and then apply racial traits and then like one or two class abilities, but keep them really fucking low. And then it's like, they seem powerful, and then they're really not, and the party, you know, NPCs start going down, and the party's like, uh-oh, do we spend resources on this one that doesn't overly matter?
Yeah.
So I do like doing that. Okay. So, thing is, I really want to wait to do these power stones up here around the head, which are really awesome. But I'm going to wait until my green stuff will arrive so I can use the fluorescence.
I was going to say, wait till you get them.
Yeah, because I think that I definitely want to have them really glowing and do an OSL off the helm. Right, what time are we on? Okay, it's not bad. It's 5 to 12. So, yeah. How's your I keep saying barbarian.
5 to 1, and my druid is coming along this week.
I was listening to you. I promise.
That's all right.
I'll allow it.
So I've managed to get down some base colours and do a bit of skin. See if I can actually make this armor.
Pull it back. There. Also, your nails are looking really good.
Thank you.
I need to do mine. That's really cool. I love the brown that you're using for the fur. It's like quite reddish on this camera.
Well, it's trying to sort of obviously distinguish between, because he is leathers and furs. So it is lots of browns, but it's trying to make sure there's a distinction between them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The brown I've got for his trousers is actually an ink.
Oh, really?
It is the Vallejo Game Colour sepia ink.
Ah, I love ink.
And it's
really
beautiful.
fun. I mostly use inks for dice or for dice numbers or for airbrushing because they're such high pigmented. But actually, brushing them on can be such a pleasure. Same with like airbrush paints. A lot of people think it's only for an airbrush. No, they're thinned, lovely, and perfect for brushing them on.
Oh, that's it, and it's beautiful then.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a flat brush, so something like this here, and this is going to be so that I can try and just use the side of the brush to get those lines. Dibs, fucking hell, Pasty, what is this thing? That's a Draco Lich, my friend. It is.
Sent him a Draco Lich.
Yeah, so one of the things that they had was like Xanthagard, the Undying or something. It's basically Oranax, but like coming over like a fortress of like stone, and it's like holding a horse in one of its like claws.
Love it.
And I essentially printed it out because I wanted it for me anyway for later down the line, and I've sent it to you because when we get to the Draco Lich, I was like, this could be quite fun. But the one I sent to Dibs, unfortunately, is not a great print. There were quite a few failures on it because I used the pre-supports, but I think you and I both struggle with other people's supports.
Depends on the company. There are certain companies that actually take time and care into their pre-supports.
Dibs, I will send you a pic for reference. Yeah, I think I agree with that, but I tend to not trust anybody anymore because the amount of resin I've wasted using the pre-supports. But I was in a rush to get it out, and I was like, I just want you to take part. And Dibs has been very kind socially to us with sharing a lot of our things and always being here in chat. So I was want to do something nice for New Year. That, and they sent us out Christmas gifts, which was just lovely.
He is a lovely bugger, that one.
He's all right. He's from my neck of the woods, or am I from his?
You're from his.
Yeah, I don't live in Nottingham anymore. Okay, so I'm using upward strokes, which is strange for dry brushing, to pull up because the big spikes on the back are going up like an explosion. And although you would normally it would be where the light hits, I like the idea of the direction still looking like it's erupted from their central core, I guess, for this particular mini. The only problem I can see is an uneven base. Yeah, that was the main thing, to be honest, Divs. Hence why I was like, get some milliput on there.
Is it print flat or?
No, it was slightly. It was at like 20-degree angle.
Isn't enough of an angle.
Yeah, exactly that. But it's also got like stacked blocks and like arrows sticking out of it and stuff. So it's like an awkward one to kind of I get why they supported it like that, but obviously it's supported for a different kind of printing or a different printer, and I would very much go a different way about doing that, but only because I know how I print things, not necessarily the company themselves. But yeah, it's a cool little competition that people should go check out. It's Fiend Slayer Games. I think they're on Instagram, and it's a case that you join their Discord, and then from there you can take part in the competition. It's actually pretty cool little community so far, I've found. Everyone seems really nice. Okay, so that's the start of the stone on, although there's some on the hips there. Grab that bit as well. I think if I was going for a more magical effect on this, or a more crystalline effect, I would use bright colours for the crystals, but I want this to be rock, so I want it to stick to that kind of elemental druidity. Right, let's grab that playlist. Perfect. That one's just come to an end. So now I'm going to grab some Necron Compound, which is a Citadel paint. This is a dry brush. I'm going to go over the silver bits so that we have a bit of definition away from the plate mail that we used. Sorry, the Deadly Iron that we used underneath. I'm using a makeup brush for this. This is your Primark Special double-ended paintbrush, makeup brush. It costs like £1.
I'd say Superdrug are pretty good for their makeup brushes, their dry brush brushes.
Oh, they're so good. I genuinely suggest these. Like, this one's my favourite. It is big at one end, and it's tiny at the other. And it's great for really small minis. The one I'm using now is a bigger one, because we've got a big mini in front of us. So, Dibs, can you ask Rich if this is like the Crypt Dragon he did for me? It probably is very much like the Crypt Dragon. It's essentially a skeletal dragon, and
basically same type of creature.
Yeah, exactly that. And I decided to go with a really small mini for mine. Okay, so what the Necron Compound's going to do for me is just pull out any of those really bigger areas of detail, and it's going to let the light catch it just a little bit better and come away from the grey that is above the plate mail on the shoulders. It's also just going to add a little bit of direction and wear and tear to it as well. Baron Snowhand. Ooh, a bit of painting. Nice. Hello, Baron. How are you? Yeah, we're just not painting up the monster manual today. We've been talking about monster creation and talking about character creation while we paint up some Artisan Guild minis and just take our time with it today so that we can come into the new year nice and chill, to be honest. So I think that's the only bit of metal is the helm, the breastplate, and the forearms, or the gauntlets. I'm very tempted to airbrush through a speed paint over the top of that silver and then go around like the filigree with gold, maybe.
Just to see what's what.
Yeah, just because it'd be something really stand-out-ish, and I quite like that. So what do you find for a new DM, Rich, is the best way to go about monster creation? What did you do when you first got into DMing, and how, you know, would you say, you know, what would be your advice? Would you say go rules as written, or would you say reskin something, or just go straight for the back?
If I was talking to a new DM, I would say go rules as written. For the simple thing is I very much tried to go full custom a lot when I especially when I first started.
Yeah.
And the problem was I came a bit unstuck because the fact is I either made things too weak or too powerful.
Yes.
The benefit of it, obviously, as rules is written, you're in a controlled environment where you can get some of the teething issues out of the way. You can get yourself used to the mechanics. You can also get yourself used to some of the player things players can do.
Yes.
Because when you're playing, you don't always pay attention to what everyone else in your group is doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you always twig and realise. Rogues and monks being one of the key things, especially when you have a caster.
Yeah.
If a rogue and monk gets close to you, you're pooped.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, things like assassinate or sneak attack can be real big damage. The same with paladins.
Paladins and smites, yes.
Yeah, absolutely one of those things that you should get used to as a DM as well as a player. It's actually one of the things that I like to do is I like to go into people's classes at the start of a game and try and learn it as they're going through it as well. So instead of having to know everything about every class, know your class as a player, but if you're a DM, know your players' classes. So if you've got 5 people at the table, do read their 5 classes so that you know roughly where they're heading, how to level them up and how to add that to the narrative, but also what their abilities are going to be in a fight. Because I think that when it comes to monster creation, if you then start going into it and being like, right, I need to do this, that, and the other, I'm going to do this, and you create something that they just cannot face or beat, then, there's going to be a lot of people not having fun at the table, realistically. As for, players can absolutely face something that they can't beat if they go somewhere they're not supposed to be going, or skipping loads of the storyline unintentionally. You don't always have to win every fight in D&D. You can run.
Sometimes running is winning the fight.
Yeah, exactly that. I think that is a very, very apt thing to say because, you can't win them all. You absolutely can't win them all. Right,
One thing I do like to do as well is certain things I create to basically be an opposition to a character.
Yes! I like this.
Especially powerful, characters that are quite sort of adept at combat.
So this is something I like to do with character arcs and with a character arc's main antagonist. I find that obviously each character should have, when I write a campaign, their own story arc, and that story arc should have a bad guy. That bad guy should be something that the whole party should struggle to face, but is a winnable fight. It should be emotional and it should be tense. However, the reason that character has this arch rival or they have this antagonist is because, we want to give them something to aim for, but we don't want it to be easy. So I really, really like making a character's antagonist for their arc their antithesis. I really like making it the anti-that character. So the other people have to come in and help that character. They have to be a team, but it also makes the player feel like when they beat that fight, they've really beaten their story arc and they've trained up to whatever level it is specifically for this goal realistically. And I find it to be very rewarding as a DM, and it seems from what I've seen so far that players seem to enjoy that. If any of my players decide that's not the case, please let me know.
Definitely.
So I'm coming back in with a darker brown again now. The underside of those arms and the legs.
I love that.
And we're slowly just building up those areas. And what I really like about big minis is you don't have to be that neat to begin with. It's only when you pull out those final highlights that you really want to kind of get in there. There's a lovely tree stump down here that I want to paint on the base now. But it is 1:10, Richard.
Blimey.
Yeah, so we will call the stream soon. Baron, a bit of painting. Nice out. We read that one. Well, I'm a new DM, and after the second session I had to create a monster, because it turns out that the Goblin Barbarian on the team is an animal lover and tamed a firebrand ember snake. Some of the best Christmas and animal handling roles I've seen. And so now he has a fire rage ember snake mount, and her name's Barry. That's really cool. But that's another thing as well, actually. If you put in creatures into a story arc and you've got things like druids or people with high animal handling, you've got to expect that to happen. I think that is a...
But remember, don't hinder yourself in thinking you have to do something just because they've passed a roll.
Oh, very true as well, actually.
A wild creature's not going to stay with someone just because a player managed to pat his head and talk nice.
Very true. Very true. But I suppose it's down to player and DM at that point, and it's very much a like, you know, if it's breaking your story, then be like, okay, I need to find a way to maybe wean this character away to another way. But if it's something they really enjoy, then that's kind of what the game's about. And it's a way of, you know, going around that. Like, we had a barbarian who tamed a bird of paradise and then went to a cold area. Luckily, they thought about it and was like, I'm going to leave the bird on the boat. Like, yeah, I was going to kill that. So,
Definitely.
something I will point out that I'm doing here. I've added really rough browns to this base where the tree stump is, and I was not careful. And that was intentional, because what I'm doing now is I'm just taking a wet brush with no paint on it, and I'm just thinning down any of the areas around those branches, just to create, it's almost a wet blend over the grey. That way I don't need to worry about tidying up, but I can blend it into the stonework, but also make it look like shadows or stainage.
I'm just going through trying to pick out some of the bone bits to get the first coat of bone colour on them. Because for some reason there's a lot of bone on this guy.
Have they gone with the standard trope of like bone necklaces and bone collectibles on everything?
I've got 2 tusks in the belt. I've got random little sort of carved symbols, and then 5 massive bones in the shoulder, on the shoulder of where the pelt is.
Is that something that once you had this mini, you incorporated into your character, or are you just like, wow, that's there and that's just on the mini?
At the moment, it's just there and it's on the mini.
Yeah, because again, if you've got a mini for your character, you don't have to incorporate it. It's just a token for the table. If you sit there and go, oh, but my mini's got this, so I've got to find a way. No, you don't have to.
Either that or find someone that you know that can, you know,
Modify the file.
edit the files.
Yeah, or kit bash. Kit bashing is a great way of doing things. I love kit bashing. I find it a...
awesome little thing.
Yeah, and I think when you 3D print and you get loads of bits left over from fails, or you get...
So I've got loads of boxes with hands and weapons and all sorts.
Yeah, same. And same with like things like Warhammer and Legion. I've got so many different little bits that like now I'm just like creating dead bodies for like NPC minis. And I actually did a barman the other day where like I took a Loot Studios welcome pack barman, snapped its head off, and then put a Dragonborn head on it.
Oh, is that the one you put in Groot?
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, I just wanted it the first mini of the year to be a Dragonborn. But I was also like, you know, when you're in those paint moods where you're like, ugh, I've got to paint, I want to paint, but I also can't be bothered.
Yeah.
So you're like, sort of going through the motions, and that was sort of that mini for me. And actually, it got me back into it because then I was like, hey, I'm going to grab out my Star Wars stuff. And with my Star Wars stuff, I was like, I want
You picked out loads this week, didn't you?
Oh man, I'm still going through them. I'll put up pictures later on, but yeah, I've done the majority of all of my Mandalorian Super Commandos, and I've done most of Darth Maul. I'm now working through Clan Ren Mandalorians. I've got Grogu and Din Djarin on the go, possibly Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, and a speeder bus from Star Wars, all at the same time.
I've got to get painting a Grogu statue soon. So I've got an event coming up in February. I'm going to take some stuff too.
Oh, plug. What is it?
It's a local board game convention.
And where can people find you and this board game convention?
So you will find me on Instagram, Facebook, Etsy, Band of Badgers, Dragon Ball Industries. This board game convention is Paradise Board Game Convention. They are on Facebook. It is a new one because they did their first one last year that I went to, and it's in my hometown here in Little Worthing.
Ah, lovely.
So quite nice. And yeah, so that should be a good bit of fun. But I'm gonna try and take a few painted bits and pieces so that these two are coming with me.
Oh really?
Yeah, I've got to get the Asterion done.
I love that book nook.
Cool, isn't it?
Very
I've got Captain America I need to finish as well. But I've been saying that for nearly a year, so.
Little Goblin Girl says, oh, that's a great way to earn your mount. Yeah, it's fantastic way. So I've just taken some XV88. So this is quite a tan brown, and I use that for a lot of top layers of wood, especially when it comes to just before doing the highlights and such. It's probably equivalent to Dryad Brown or the Leather Brown in the Army Painter, but it just adds a slight orange colour to that wood, and I like that as it starts to, we start to bring up the vibrancy now on our minis. So, Richard, it's 1:15, so we're probably going to call the stream.
That's it. That's home time, then, isn't it?
Yeah, it is home time. I hope that people listening, even if it wasn't your way of DMing or GMing, or if it wasn't your cup of tea, that maybe you got a piece of information that might have helped you with some part of the creative process. Because for me, a lot of GMing and DMing is about either reskinning a monster, about creating an NPC, or about creating a monster stat block so that you can throw something new to your party or to the storyline to add so much more immersion. And when we get things like minis like this, I love to think, how would I put this into a campaign? How would I enact this as something that the party could face? Where in the world would it be? How would it be encountered? What would it be there for? Why is it there? And why is the biggest question, I guess. Richard, thank you for sending me out this mini, because it's absolutely stunning, and I'm going to spend lots of time painting this up. I do hope that people got some kind of information that they might need from us in today's episode. And, you know, while we sat here rambling away, you know, maybe you picked up on one or two little things. Maybe you didn't. Maybe if you can tell us how you do it, please let us know. Comment if you're on YouTube. That'd be, you know, fantastic. Oh, we got ZZ23. I have no one local to play with, so have mini sessions with my son from time to time. It's been fun so far, but a challenge in that it's just as two. Yes, DMing one-on-one can be hard, but you can tailor it so specifically for that player that it can make it very, very much about them, which is fantastic. So well done you for like doing that with your little one. What I also like is I play D&D on my own. And that sounds like the saddest thing in the world, but actually, I find it really good for world building. So I will sit there, I will have like my monsters or my NPCs, particularly that I've created, and I will, if there's a fight going on and it's meant to be like back away from the party, but the party are going to come across what's happened, I'll roll that encounter and I will play it out as if I was all of those things, and then the party come across that, and I find it a really good way to build up on stuff. What about you, Richard?
I tend to live it all through in my mind.
Yeah.
So how I tend to world build, I'll listen to music if it's and especially if I'm stuck in certain parts and I need something, I'll go for a walk and I'll listen to music, and that's tend to how I world build. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a lot. It's very. I couldn't imagine doing a one-on-one. It would be very difficult, and you know, hats off to the for doing it that way. And
yeah.
And I can see how it'd be quite interesting to do that, how you do it as well, working out and being able to sort of, I say it's almost like getting first hand and being down and sort of seeing what's going on. Yeah. Well, Little Goblin Girl says there's a really good two-player system from Fights of Fancy, which is fab for getting the D&D fix with fewer players. I will have to check that. Baron, so all good, some good info obtained. Thank you so much. Geeky Phoenix, Richard and Ian, I'll message you later, panicking about setting up my mono M5s. Richard's definitely your boy for that. Is it the M5 or the M5S? M5S. Good luck. Yeah, and thanks, Little Goblin Girl. I'll take a look. I like the one-on-one D&D. I also really like playing it on my own because, yeah, it's quite a fun thing, and I might do a video at some point on how I go about doing that. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like what you see and you're on Twitch, Kick, or YouTube, hit the likes, the subs. You know, if you've got questions, bang them in the comments. If it's about 3D printing, you go find Warrior Prince 3D on Etsy or on Instagram at Warrior Prince 3D. And yeah, all in all, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you have a fantastic... This is the first session back of 2024, so a fantastic year. And we will see you next... See you next time. Yeah, next week for the Cock Trace. Guys, take it easy, and may the dice gods be ever in your favour. Take it easy now, guys.